Episode 4, Monarch, Legacy of Monsters is out. And I'm just going to start right off the bat by saying this show doesn't seem to have an identity. It doesn't really know what it wants to be. It's jumping all over the place time-wise. Tonally, it's all over the place. It kind of seems like it wants to be a drama, but it sort of also wants to be sci-fi with a little bit of action. I just don't think they know what they want to do with it. The entire past timeline does not happen this episode. It's just never brought up. So this is all present day, and we still get multiple time jumps. Time jumps in the present day, between years and months and whatever. So this chick, we start the episode off with, is at one of their watch points, and some really old device goes off. She's seeing a reading, something about some kind of essentially portal in the earth is what we find out later. And I don't know if she's going to be more important later, but she is a plot device in this one. So this is just a quick scene. She's in Utah, 2015. She's getting a weird reading, and then she disappears for a while. We pick back up where last week's episode left off with this giant ice titan monster thing with a squid mouth chasing Lee, Kate, May, and Kentaro. And they're running, the thing's catching them. Kentaro shoots a flare and distracts it, and then they get away and go hide in an ice cave. While they're in this ice cave, May falls into like a crack in the ice. So she's got frozen water on her from the knees down. And obviously they're in a super cold place with no shelter and a big monster chasing them. So it's a pretty bad situation. And she takes another opportunity to blame Kentaro. So at this point, she's just like hitting some kind of quota to bitch at him once per episode, I guess. I don't know what's going on with her. Like, I understand being frustrated, but she's always directing it at him. And she's always blaming him for things that are out of his control. Like, once he brought her the tapes initially, everything else has been out of his hands. I don't know why she keeps going on about it. So they're trying to wait out the monster in this cave. And then we get a flashback to 1 year prior where Kentaro is getting his first art display, because we saw in a previous episode, I believe it was the first one, that he had kind of art all over his walls in his apartment. And this is his mom coming to look at his artwork. He's having like a gallery or whatever that it sounds like the dad got him some kind of connection so that he could put his stuff on display. And the person who agreed to put his stuff on display, I guess, gets to choose the pieces. And I've actually thought they've done a pretty decent job with the sets for this show, except for this one, which is weird. Because from what we can see, it's literally just an empty room with these 5 faces that you can see 2 on the left, 1 in the back, and 2 on the right. And I guess that's all of his artwork for the gallery that they're trying to sell to people. I don't know, just kind of strange to me. Kentaro's seemingly bitter because this stuff is not his favorite art that he's made, but it's the stuff that she wants to try to sell. And his mom is like, we're proud of you. It's a good opportunity, blah, blah, blah. So he goes out to get some fresh air. He takes a picture of his poster. It's kind of like it's his thing. He's excited. It's his first one. And May happens to be walking in front of the picture. And she's like, hey, can you delete the picture? And she's speaking in English about how pretentious this whole thing is. And then he starts speaking in English, which they've done this joke a couple times now. I'll go ahead and say right away, their chemistry is atrocious. It feels super forced. I don't know if it's the acting. I don't know if it's the writing or both. But their whole interactions together just do not work for me. And also they do the thing where she calls this art thing pretentious and they're kind of joking about it. And then she asks if they have wine and he's like, yeah, but it's cheap, pretentious, blah, blah, blah. And then she says, I prefer whiskey. Do you have anything expensive? And it's like, did you guys not double check your own writing? I mean, they don't play it off as a joke. So I think they just didn't notice how dumb that sounds to say that you don't want the cheap, pretentious wine, but you want expensive whiskey. So this starts this whole arc that we get this episode, which is really just a waste of time. And this is what I'm talking about with the tone, where it kind of seems like it wants to be sort of like a drama instead of like a sci-fi show. Because it's not really committing to any one thing. So it's just kind of all over the place. I'll come back to this at the next flashback. They're all walking along in this frozen area now that the Titan kind of wandered off. They don't really know where. They don't know what attracts it. And Kentaro says that he saw a white golf ball thing when the plane was landing. And he thinks he knows the direction that it's in, and that's the closest thing for them to get help, because obviously they'll freeze to death. So they're walking in that general direction because Lee, or Kurt Russell, said, let's head to the ocean. That's our best chance for finding a settlement. Back to the flashback, Kentaro and May go get a drink when his gallery is supposed to be starting in an hour and a half to 2 hours, and he's supposed to be there to meet people, because that's part of the first scene, is that he's unprepared for why they should buy his art and the significance of it. And what you find out really is that he just doesn't believe in it, which is kind of weird because he made it. This guy's the bar owner in the shot, and he lets Kentaro come in here and bring girls to pick up drinks and stuff before they're open, because Kentaro did the lighting, which is kind of weird because he's an artist and this makes him sound like an interior decorator, but I'm not going to split hairs. maybe people who are good at art move on to interior decorating. I have no idea. And they have all this dialogue together. And to me, this is really where you can see how cringy their performance is, because they just do not work. I really don't know if it's the writing or if they just can't act, or it's both. Sometimes actors just don't have chemistry. I don't know. But this whole flashback thing just kind of doesn't work for me. They go back to his place because she says that she wants to see the art that he actually likes. And he's asked her a couple times at this point what she does, and she just says computer stuff and leaves it at that. And then it does come up again later, and I'll talk about that when I get there. This whole thing is just weird to me. Maybe this is normal. I don't know. This girl is an American in a foreign country, met this guy who she kind of implies seems like a con artist repeatedly because she doesn't actually believe that it's his gallery. And then she goes back to his place alone. Just doesn't seem like a good decision to me, but whatever. I'm going to follow that with him because later on, he leaves, I guess, to go to his gallery. He lets her stay in the apartment by herself. So both of them are making decisions that I just don't fucking understand. Maybe I'm just less trusting of people or whatever. But I would think if you lived in Tokyo, like a big city, you'd be a bit hesitant to go to some guy's place that you don't know alone if you're a woman, really, or a guy. And if you're a guy, you'd be hesitant to let some chick come to your place and then be like, oh, just lock up when you leave. Like, come down to the gallery, I'll see you later. Very trusting for a first meeting. It's very strange. But they talk about the art and whatever. And then before he goes back to his gallery, which I think he's already running late for, it seems, they kiss. And obviously they're going to hook up. So this is like his first opportunity that he got to be an artist, and he's blowing it off. Just complete simpy dumbassery decision. And they haven't really done anything to reflect that in his character, that he's like some slacker. I mean, I know he lives at home with his mom, but there's been no real explanation of why he's not got his shit together. And as soon as he came to this stuff with his dad, he was taking the initiative to get into it. So to me, I wouldn't say it's out of character as much as he doesn't really have a character. And this is just kind of more the same shit with him being kind of a loser. Back to the present, we see them walking along the top of a mountain. They see this light in the distance and they think it's an oil rig or something. They don't know what it is, but they're like, let's go there. They should have at least heat, food, water. We can call for help type thing, which I kind of think is reasonable. But at the same time, you saw when they first got there, it was very bright out, and now it's like dusk. So we don't know how far they've walked. And just looking at that, guessing, they had to go over at least one mountain, maybe two, in the deep ass snow and the freezing cold. And she has like frozen legs. So you're talking about hours of walking down and up a mountain with no food, no water, and no shelter. So it's a long way. And Kentaro says that. He's like, you guys don't even know how far that is. That's really far away. Which I would think Lee could give an estimate since he's a military guy. He doesn't. So Kentaro says, I'm going to go toward the golf ball. They get into a little bit of argument about it, about how they shouldn't split up. And eventually they do split up. Lee says he's made his decision. Hopefully we'll be able to get help here and we can help both of us out. That's kind of his response to it, which I actually think is appropriate. You can't take someone along who's resisting, well, especially with an old guy and two girls, and you can't waste any more time. So they go their own ways. We go to the Monarch headquarters, which are apparently in Arlington, Virginia. This is the chick that was in the trailer in Utah to start the episode. And she pretty much just gives this big exposition dump about how the last time they saw one of these signals, a Titan came out. She refers to it as the incident or something along those lines. And what they're referring to is when Godzilla went through San Francisco, is the long and short of it. And they get into the thing where she's kind of implying the Hollow Earth type thing from Godzilla vs. King Kong, since this is all tied together. We jump back to our main group. Kentaro's wandering. You can tell you can't see anything, so he's freezing. Separately, May, Kate, and Lee are kind of wandering and doing their own thing. They're trying to get to the light, and May is having a really hard time because her legs are freezing up, obviously. And Kate's like, we're not going to leave her behind, blah, blah, blah. She's already pissed off about leaving Kentaro behind, so that's kind of where we're at. And she just keeps saying she doesn't want to lose anybody else. But she's upset, I guess, about the guy Dong. Back to Kentaro, and then he's hallucinating at this point because he kind of collapsed in the snow. And now we get another flashback to him and May. In the flashback, him and May hooked up. I guess he's still going to the gallery like super late. I have no idea how long these things last. But he said he was going to be late if he didn't go there from the bar. And then they went back to his place and hung out, and then they hooked up. So I guess he'll make it eventually. Not really. Either way, they hooked up. They're kind of talking. He brings up that she just keeps saying she does computer stuff. And then she gets all shitty and is like, Tacoma sucked, so I came to Tokyo because Tokyo is cool. And he apologizes. And he just acts like a total bitch. Like, I hate this whole dynamic they have where she acts like a bitch in the rude way, and he acts like a bitch, like a pussy. Like, he just met this chick a couple hours ago who I don't particularly find attractive. And he's like simping all over her. And he doesn't even know anything about her. I don't know. Maybe it's just a preference thing. Kentaro leaves her at his place alone, which I mentioned before is absolutely ridiculous. There's people that I wouldn't even allow into my house if I had been around them multiple times. let alone some chick you just met a couple hours ago in the street who came back to your place and fucked you. Do you not think she's a scammer? She won't say anything about herself that's not vague. Whatever. The writing is dog shit. May gets a call and she's like, you have to stop calling me, blah, blah, blah. And she's like sighing. It kind of seems like it's supposed to be an ex, but we don't really have any idea yet. And they did this transition from him in the snow to seeing her into their bedroom. And now we get the transition again with this light from her back into the snow. So for some reason, when they followed that light, it brought them back to their camp. And Lee just says the Titans can have weird effects on the area. We don't really know anything about them. And that every Titan is completely different. We've never seen two that are the same. So they end up back in the area that they were in with the tent. And they build a fire to heat May's pants up and let her cool off. And she says her legs are hurting. And Kate says that's good. That means your nerves are waking up. So she doesn't have hypothermia. And then Lee brings the paperwork over and he's like, we can burn this, but I don't know how long it's going to last. And it's your dad's drawings and blah, blah, blah. It could be significant. And Kate says, burn it all, which, I guess it's supposed to be symbolic. I feel like a normal person there would just say the drawings won't do us any good if we don't live to make it out of here. So throw it in the fire. But I guess that's not nearly as dramatic. They are talking and doing their thing. And then all of a sudden you see the ice bulging and the monster's coming back. So they run and they see the monster come up through the ice and like suck the fire in. And Lee's like, oh, I figured it out. It's attracted to the heat. So before, Kentaro fired the flare and then we were the next warmest things. So it came after us. And it seems like it doesn't really have vision. So it's just going based off of heat. We go back to the meeting in Arlington at the Monarch headquarters. And the logistics in this show, I'm just going to go ahead and say right now, are absolutely nonsensical. It's astonishing, actually, how little they paid attention. So Tim is talking to the headquarters because they're having this big meeting and he interrupted. And he's like, I thought when we got into the business of atomic eating monsters that people would understand that we would have to make decisions like this and blah, blah, blah. Or you guys would take the initiative. Because they're all just kind of wanting to do nothing. And Tim is like, we need to go there and like follow Randa because his paperwork had meaning. And Lee knew that. So he's still not letting go of the Lee thing. And that's pretty much the conclusion the meeting comes to is he kind of bitches at everybody. And he's still weird. I don't really understand like the whole dynamic here because he was like hiding stuff before and then he got in trouble and almost got pulled off the job. But now he throws a tantrum and gets his way. I don't know what's going on. They're trying to figure out what to do about this monster. And I don't really understand what the plan is because Lee finds a big thing of gas and he finds some candy and stuff from the dead body and that sort of thing. So they can eat a little bit at least. But he's like, we're going to pour this gas on Dong's corpse and then light it up. And I don't know if they're hoping to kill the monster or if they're hoping just to let the monster eat that part of the fire while they get away. It's not very clear to me. And then here May says, hey, to Kate, if you need to leave me behind, do it. If you need to leave him behind, do it. Someone needs to survive. And she's given her sister's information because she says she has no one else to call. So she's close to her sister, I guess. Kentaro hallucinates his dad and gets back up. And then he finds pencil shavings in the ice, which are supposed to be significant, which I think is a pretty big stretch, but whatever. He follows his dad's hallucination and the pencil shavings in the ice that he found in the middle of Alaska at night. He follows the pencil shavings to the white golf ball that he saw from the plane. And I'm just going to go ahead and say this seems like total horse shit to me. You can see how small this base is, or this outpost. It's literally like two little cabins with a white ball on top. So he's saying he saw that from the crashing plane or the flying plane, either one, in the middle of the snow, in the middle of nowhere on their way down. Whatever. Inside, there's some damaged equipment, but the phone still works, even though the base has been abandoned and all the windows are broken. And he finds the pencil shavings, which he knows are his dad's. And he says that his dad repaired the phone later on. All of this just seems like horseshit to me. So that's what happens. He finds a phone and calls for help. This part is another flashback. I think this is the last one, thank God. And his dad had showed up to his gallery. And it does seem like it's supposed to be a hallucination. Kentaro is like bitching at him for his dad being like, you're talented and I think you're ready and you should go after it. Like he's believing in you and telling you to believe in yourself. And that's what he was wanting to happen and his dad missed it. So we cut back to the other group. They have to blow this monster up or whatever they're doing. Before they light the shit on fire, the monster shows up. Kate and May run. So he's looking for the lighter while the monster chases Kate and May. And she falls over because her legs aren't healed. And the monster starts freezing her the way they did the plane last one. Lee is looking around for the lighter. And he lights it and just holds this sheet in front of himself and it blows him back, but he's fine, even though he's like 100. And then the monster comes back for the fire and Lee runs and catches up with Kate and May. And this is like one of those weird either editing things or they just didn't pay attention. But Lee goes from where the monster is like 150 yards away to Kate and May in like 2 seconds. Because they're all running toward a helicopter that just showed up, which that's the part that I don't understand the logistics of. Like we see Kentaro picking up the phone and then it hard cuts to the monster like going after them. So it seems like the time between those two is like none. Whatever. I guess it just teleported. It's Monarch. They had the technology. I don't know. They all get on the helicopter. They're escaping to safety. Kate and Lee thank Kentaro. May is hooked up to some kind of fluid and whatever to help her recover and avoid hypothermia. And May thanks Kate and then blows off Kentaro. So I guess they are just committed to making her a total bitch. Like, even if you're mad at the guy for the whole situation, he just saved all your lives from the giant ice monster. But whatever. I mean, I'm sure they'll just frame it as she's correct anyway. And also, they try to make this seem like a twist or something at the end. And I don't really understand why. Tim is waiting there for them, and they all look surprised. And I'm like, why are you surprised? You called an emergency number from a Monarch outpost where a giant monster was. And obviously, this is where the episode ends. But this is another part that I was like, how the hell did he get there so fast? I mean, it's not even clear where he is at this point, but still. And also, they got to Kentaro with a helicopter. And then from Kentaro to the other 3 in like 0 time. Because Kentaro called and they were already being attacked by the monster. And I know you can try to say, well, it's staggered and whatever. They did nothing to indicate any kind of passage of time. So the way that it was shot makes it look like Kentaro picked up the phone, the monster called, Kentaro got saved, and then they all got saved before the monster ate them in like no time, just sequence. So yeah, this show for me is just really all over the place. I don't think it knows what it wants to be. I mentioned last week that I think that this might have been a different show and then they had to change it to this Monarch show to get it made. And I still think that because like the past timeline is like kind of a weird sci-fi exploration love story that I think is completely disconnected from the present, because all of the stuff that links the past to the present could not be in the show and the present would still make sense, except for Lee, I guess. And then you have this weird, I think it's going to end up being a love story between May and Kentaro where they get together. And then you also had this thing where Kate is mad at her dad and kind of bitter at the half brother. So she's just kind of wandering around, not really knowing what's going on. And then Lee is like leading an adventure. And then you have this weird sci-fi stuff where they walked in a circle even though they didn't. You've got these flashbacks to like drama and I guess like a bitter breakup that is mostly off screen. You've got like a bazillion time jumps between the 2 timelines. So the story is really all over the place time-wise too. So yeah, I don't know what's going on. It's not working for me. I think Godzilla is done in the show. The next episode description says that Kate has to deal with her trauma as she wanders around San Francisco. So I guess we're going to keep seeing that flashback of her seeing Godzilla. But I'm pretty sure they killed Godzilla off in the past timeline. And that if Godzilla shows up in the present timeline, it will be minimal. And you know the other monsters are in it. This was the most monsters we got, this Ice Titan thing. And it was important to the plot. I keep waiting, like, they're trying to make stuff mysterious. And I'm like, when are we going to get an answer? And then it just kind of extends out with drama and stuff that feels like filler. Maybe next week we'll just get like an exposition dump from Tim and that'll kind of bridge the gaps and we can move forward with the story. But the fact that it says that Kate's going to be in San Francisco makes me think that we're just going to kind of hop from place to place. And that's where we're at. May is still bitter. Kentaro is weirdly stubborn but also kind of a pussy. Kate is just there. And Lee is like leading the logistics of the adventure. I don't have much else to say. I don't want to go any longer than I already have. If you're here, like and subscribe and all that shit. And if you want to see Godzilla, the Godzilla -1 movie is awesome. You can check out that video on my channel or just go to the theater and see it. It was great. And every person that's commented on it said they loved it. So go check that out instead.